shying away from that, you know, in a very respectable way. We would express our concerns and we will highlight ideas and solutions to these issues. So that being the case, we welcome Madi. We're gonna talk areas of corruption, yeah, human rights, and also, you know, reform agenda that we have in place, because it's us who have to, you know, hold our leaders accountable to push them, you know, so these things can be in place and make sure that they are, you know, followed. We just cannot say X, Y, and Z and nobody, you know, push it. We have to make sure that we go about it. If we say anti-corruption, we have to make sure that those laws are, you know, implemented, and then we have to hold those folks accountable if they break those laws. So, welcome, Madi Jorbateh from the Gambia.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here. You know, I like the name, the New Gambia platform. So I suppose that dedication to creating a new Gambia, which is a collective responsibility. It's an individual and a collective responsibility. So, so I'm happy to be here to contribute to that process.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. You are welcome.
You're welcome. All right, Madi, so you can go ahead. You know, whichever areas you want to talk about, and then we will poke in questions as we go along. And then also concerns or, you know, support, you know, whatever stuff you're talking about. Or if we have any things that we have to counter, we will also do that.
Okay. Well, I thought it would be the other way around. You will raise issues, so I try to comment on them or
contribute. Okay.
Yes, but
we can do that too. I mean, if you want, because we have the corruption. Sam, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say, you know, especially Madi's area of expertise and what he does. I think we need to start with human rights and human rights violations in the country, and bring that topic up and talk about that, and so he can chime in and say from experience and also speak from, you know, speak his mind, because is you know, this is the world of democracy, and we need to make sure that democracy has been promoted everywhere in the world, especially in Gambia, especially, you know, for us. So I think starting with human rights is a good one to start with.
Madi, and if you can share your the short with your for your audience, I think that would also help. If you have access to your,
I mean, Madi can just
Facebook,
explain for us.
Facebook, yeah.
Okay, I'll try to log on and see.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it.
Yeah.
Send you the yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Sam, and again to all of you. And probably it's okay. It's appropriate we start with human rights, and I think we need to have a good perspective of this issue. You know, a perspective that we should have had on the very first day of independence. That ultimately everything is about human rights. You know, that when we fought for independence, it's about our human rights. This is what citizens got to understand. That colonialism was oppression, was dictatorship. And under colonialism, you are denied your rights. And here, when we talk about rights, one may talk about right to life, right to education, right to freedom of expression. But what we got to understand about human rights is that the sum total of human rights, the very objective basis of human rights, is to make the human being a dignified being. You understand? My rights, your right, and all the rights we claim, they uphold our humanity, our dignity as a human being. Recognize that the human being is an embodiment of respect, is an embodiment of values values that are based on sacred, principles, to have freedom, the freedom to be what you want to be, the freedom to grow, to develop, the freedom to have the capacity to build the skills, to have knowledge, to be able to utilize these skills and knowledge in order to produce a standard of life that raises the human being above lower animals. The reason human beings build a house, or human beings build an aeroplane, or human beings write, or we create a Zoom like this, which goats and monkeys don't do, is because we are uplifting, we are manifesting our humanity, our capacity to produce a life that is convenient. Imagine donkeys, where we tie our goats, our sheep in our homes every day. We've never seen goats and donkeys go to build a house because they want to protect themselves from rain, from harm by other animals. They go into a cave to hide. They dig a hole in the ground. They don't think of an air conditioning. They don't think of other things like that. It is only human beings who do that. Why do we do that? Why don't we just leave and the rain comes and we climb trees and the rain drops on us? But we do that because we know as human beings, our life, based on the consciousness we have, that we need to have that standard of life, that we have protection, that, the way we farm, we improve the farming so that we improve the yield, we reduce the labor, the pain of the labor, and, within the shortest possible time, we produce the most. So if you look at human rights, one can look at it in a very minor way, which is the way most Gambians look at it. But when you look at human rights, you realize that the whole idea of humanity, even if you, started from, human beings are moving towards freedom. That is the nature of the human, to move towards freedom. That's why we develop all these things. Today we are talking about technology, but go 500 years back, go 1,000 years back, you'll find even at that level, people are seeking knowledge. Why do we seek knowledge? People are seeking tools. Why do they create those tools? It is all geared towards our dignity, our humanity, to reduce poverty, to remove oppression, to remove exploitation, to create justice. That's the whole essence of our being on this earth. That's all the things we do. So if one understands human rights really in its deepest sense, you got to realize this is why we fought for independence. All right? To remove the British out of this place. But not just to remove the British, but when we come to even our African history, when we were in our kingdoms and our empires, what was all this struggle about? It's about human rights. And just as it is in Africa, it's the same around the whole world. People fighting to exert their freedom. People fighting to remove dictatorship. So that if you look at the Mali Empire, why did it come about? Because there were people at the time who felt they were being oppressed by a certain kind of king called Smanguru Conte. So they fight to remove him so that they create an empire. They created a constitution in 1235 called the Kurugan-Fuga Charter or the Monday Charter, which when you read it, you realize it is heading towards human rights. See, but most people here, when we talk about human rights, they may think human rights is a Western thing. But in Africa, we have a human rights document which is far older than, and better than any European human rights document at the time. For example, if you compare the Kurugan-Fuga Charter developed in Mali, all right, by our people, it is far advanced in terms of human rights standards and norms than the Magna Carta developed by the British 20 years before, in 1215. The Kurugan-Fuga Charter was developed in 1235. The Magna Carta was developed in 1215. But when you compare the Kurugan-Fuga Charter and the Magna Carta, you realize the Kurugan-Fuga Charter is more advanced in terms of human rights principles, values, and standards than the Magna Carta. But of course, we don't read about Kurugan-Fuga Charter in our schools because we don't teach our history, but all of us know about the Magna Carta. It's quoted everywhere. It's, When our people study law, that is what they are taught. But, you know, if you look at the circumstances, in fact, you realize the circumstances of Kurgan Fuga are more noble than the circumstances of the Magna Carta, because the Kurgan Fuga is about a whole people fighting against an oppression, an oppressive king, as compared to Magna Carta, which was a situation where nobles, as barons, a certain class of nobility fighting against the king. So it wasn't a mass struggle as such. So coming back to this human rights issue, human rights is about our dignity. And so when we fought against the colonialists, we established ourselves as Gambians, as self-determination. The whole idea of independence is to uphold our dignity as human beings, so that we are recognized as human beings by ourselves. We establish our own systems of governance, we establish our institutions and run them, so that those institutions would serve us in ways that it will reduce ignorance, it will reduce, poverty, it will reduce deprivation, it will reduce, remove discrimination, exclusion. So anything that seems to exclude, to deprive, to oppress our people, whether it's based on culture or any other idea, it is removed, so that we create a society in which, as a republic, because Gambia is a democratic republic, so that in this republic, we are all equal. And this can be our constitution. Section 1, subsection 2 states that the sovereignty of the Gambia resides in the people of the Gambia. That the government derives its authority from the will of the people and performs its function in the name, on behalf of the people, for the welfare of the people. So what that means is that Gambians are sovereign citizens. We are the owners of the Gambia. We are equal in rights and sovereignty. So there's no Gambian who is better or higher, lower than anyone. We are all equal, regardless of name, culture, religion, belief, origin, birth, whatever. You see, so that sovereignty is what our independence established, and that sovereignty is situated on the recognition of Gambians as human beings who are an embodiment of rights and dignity. This is the whole idea about independence. So that since, if you take our independence in 1965, some of us believe our independence actually is from 1970, when we became a democratic republic. Because from 1965 to 1970, we were still under British domination. But even if we take 1965, from that moment on, a new idea, a new consciousness should have been created in our people to realize that you are no more a colonized people, that you are no more people of lower caste here or higher caste, or people of any, inferiority or superiority, but rather you are all equal as citizens. And consequently, we should create a system in which the institutions, the processes, our wealth are all invested in our people, so that we remove poverty. That's why we build schools. Why did we build schools as a government? Why do we build roads? So that we don't have to walk on our foot from Banjul to Basse, for 1 week we are walking. But we make life convenient, because a dignified, the dignity of the human being is such that you should not be like an animal to walk from here to Basse on your feet. You create roads. We create healthcare so that people don't die from preventable diseases. That's our dignity as human beings. We cannot be killed by malaria, or killed by whooping cough, or killed by, just giving birth to a Gambian, we die in a hospital. That's not dignified. So when you look at all of these institutions and services, that the state, which is our collective will, the state is our collective will, is our collective product, is our collective independence, sovereignty, we create that institution called the state. We pay tax to it, so that they provide all of these opportunities, all of these services, all of these goods, purposely, so that we live a dignified life. So if every Gambian understands human rights and independence and self-determination and sovereignty from that perspective, you then begin to understand, why should we have one man elected as president? Sit there for 30 years, for 22 years, for 3 years, you are not producing anything, the poverty continues, and we still leave you there. Then something is wrong with us. Something is fundamentally wrong with us. That for 30 years we had a government here, and all we lived in was poverty, was deprivation for 30 years. Then we had another president, 22 years. All he produced is more poverty, more deprivation, and more killing. And we let it be. Then something is wrong with us for accepting that. If we really know our sovereignty, that we are the owners of this republic, that the state is our collective instrument, that anybody who serves in our state is our mbindan, how can we allow that mbindan now to come and torment us? Then it means those people, they lack a sense of sovereignty. They lack a sense of self, their own value, their own worth as human beings, one, and number two, as citizens. Because what you have to understand, first and foremost, you are a human being. What is your value? What is your worth? Am I worthy as a human being for Sam to sit on my head, for Alex to take my spectacles and destroy it just like that? No, I mean, I will not take Alex's cap because it is his property. I have to respect that. But also, I'm not upset.
I think it's very.
Yeah. So this is the point. So first and foremost, you got to know as a human being, what is your worth? What is your value? That I'm not going to dogo to Momodou. No way. I'm not going to worship him, even if he's the president. Because he's my Mbindan as a president, as a National Assembly member, as an IGP. So if every citizen upholds, understands himself, his value, his worth as that, you don't understand why would you clap for a president? Really? Why would you clap for a president? Why do you run after a president? If you know your worth as a human being. That is one. Number two, if you go further to know your value as a citizen, what is a citizen? Do you ask yourself as a Gambian, when you say you're a citizen of the Gambia, what does that mean? If you don't know what that means, you can go to this, the Constitution, Section 1, subsection 2. That look, you are a sovereign citizen, that is what it says. That you are the source of power. You are the source of authority. You are the source of legitimacy of the whole state. So you are the master. Because in our Constitution, you will never see the public masters. What do you see written there? Public servants. And what is a servant other than Mbindan? A servant is Mbindan. So why would you call your president Khalifa Bango Alfal, Khalifa Rewi? They are not Khalifa Rewi, did it? They are Mbindani Rewi. Bango Mbindano. So this is all consciousness we need to create in our people, so that when you talk about a citizen, apart from what the Constitution says, a citizen literally means a person who has rights and duties. Who has rights and duties. So you ask yourself as a citizen, what are my rights? What are my duties? And again, you can go to our Constitution. You see, you can go to our Constitution. What does our Constitution say about our rights? If you go to our Constitution, Section 17, Chapter 4, it says there, what are your rights? And what are your duties? They are there. Your rights are to uphold your human rights, to respect the human rights of every other Gambian, to defend the Republic. That is what the Constitution requires you to do, to defend the Republic. Yeah. You defend the Republic. That is what you're supposed to do. Not to defend the president as a person or defend a minister here or not. No, you defend the Republic. So if that president is damaging the Republic, you stand up against him. That I'm defending the Republic, even if that president is your father or mother. This is what citizenship is. And that is where your duty lies, to hold the state accountable. So you realize that the problem we have in this country since independence is simply because we have Gambian citizens and human beings who are yet to realize, even as human beings, what is their value. And if you tell people, they may say, "Oh, mam fallong follow," but really, mam fallong, oh, for fallong, and if you don't know yourself, I remember Halifa Sallah used to say this: if you don't know yourself, you would not know what you own. If you don't know what you own, somebody will come and snatch it from your hand, and you will not be able to do anything about it. So you have to know yourself. Honestly, you have to know yourself. So one can safely say, Gambians, do we really know ourselves? And this is why I raise this issue to Gambians when they start to say, I'm patriotic. You take a walk from Banjul to Basse, on every street, meet any Gambian. Do you love the Gambia? Oh yes, I love the Gambia. Are you patriotic? Oh, I'm very patriotic. Now, how can we be a patriotic people Yet you have leaders who are plundering your wealth. You have leaders who are not delivering goods and services to you. You have leaders who are corrupt, inefficient. You have leaders who are insulting you, killing you. And you still clap for them and you still claim you love the Gambia. What are you talking about? It's the contradiction. So for me, any Gambian who tells me you are patriotic, including myself, I say, no, you are not patriotic. No. Because if you are patriotic, it's either the republic or death. That is your position. Either the republic, defend the republic, or you die. Then I know you are patriotic. So if somebody tells me I'm patriotic, like Solo Sunday, I said, you are patriotic. You stood up and, to defend the republic and you died for it. You are patriotic. If there are Hada says so, I said, yes, you are patriotic. If those students, April 2000 said they are patriotic, I said, yes, you are patriotic. If those December 30, freedom fighters said they are patriotic, I said, yes, you are patriotic. But if Momodou tells me he is patriotic, or Sam tells me he is patriotic, or Alex here, or Madi tells you I'm patriotic, I said, no, Madi, you're not patriotic. Because
I guess we're walking
you would not.
I guess we are walking towards it.
That is it. But our people got to understand these issues very in their context. All right? That when we talk about human rights, that is the very foundation of our republic, is human rights. The purpose of our republic, the reason we fought for human rights is because of independence is because of human rights. The very reason we have a state is because of human rights. The very objective of our republic, of our state, is to protect human rights. That's all. No more, no less. So, if we don't understand these things in that context, it is when we get into low-level things and we get tribal and, bigotry and partisan and, but when we do that, we are only perpetuating the oppression, the deprivation of our people. This is the sad reality in the Gambia. So maybe I'll stop here and maybe there may be clarifications or questions,
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for that, Madi. That is so moving and that is so touching. I think this is the kind of motivation we need from someone like you, because you are at the front line and you have demonstrated it. You spoke, against things. You get arrested. People stood by you, and then you are vindicated. So this is what we call as being patriotic, to stand up for your country, to speak up for the voiceless, and you are doing that. So wonderful. So Sam and Alice, you guys can jump in. If you have any questions, you can ask before we move to corruption. But definitely, this is the key: the human rights. That's the foundation. Who is coming?
Thank you very much. I can let Sam.
You sure, Alice? Well, I want to say a few things here. Mr. Jorbateh, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your comments and everything that you just said. You are really a true fighter of freedom, for human rights, and we appreciate that very much. I personally appreciate it very much. I think, just to add a little bit to what you said, these are some of the things that we see continue to happen in our country. And people like you, Mr. Jorbateh, stands up and really fight for people's freedom. And we appreciate the education that you give to people, because we need to bring that up for people to understand what their rights are. There are fundamental human rights and there are constitutional rights. When you look across the globe in the whole world, and I will bring it down to Gambia, there are fundamental human rights. Everyone has those rights. And you come to our country, those rights have been strengthened, but at the same time by our constitution, but taken away from people by certain individuals. And when I look at that, this is why it's important for us to think about the people that we put on the top, the people that we nominate and put up there to govern us, because they need to be people that supports human rights and people that support our constitutional rights, and not allow things like police brutality in our country that we've seen all over the place, so many times, years after years. Jammeh's regime, Barrow's regime, police brutality continue to happen. And there was one event that, I was very touched when I saw during Operation 3 Years protests. I saw some women were getting arrested by some officers. I don't know what they call them. And when they were accompanying this, the paramilitary or para or whatever they call them. But when they were taking this woman, I saw one of them hit the woman from the back. I felt like I wish I was the supervisor of that person there. I would have hit him myself. I would have hit this guy and asked him, how do you feel about that? Because that's how that woman felt. That's their violation of their right. That was an abuse. That should not have happened. You think about the protest that happened in Brikama. Tear gas was sent to people. All kinds of things happened. Operation 3 Years, the same thing. Madi, you were arrested for really no reason. Really, you were exercising your fundamental rights, and you got arrested. Operation 3 Years, folks got up one time. They were going to protest, and I went to, I think it was Carabao police station area, and they were called. Somebody called from the top to tell them, arrest them, don't let them go. And they arrested them for no reason, and then kept them going to report to the police station every single day. These were all nonsense. These were things that should not have happened in our country. And we should have leaders on the top that say, no, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. Even in America, when you arrest somebody, when the police arrest someone, they tell you right there in front of you, you have every right to remain silent. They tell you anything you say may be taken against you in the court of law. So you have the right to remain silent. They state your fundamental rights. You have the right to do this. So Gambia needs to understand that we need to have leaders that are going to enforce the fundamental rights, human rights, because all of these are very critical to our freedom. They are very critical to our society, very critical to our young generation that's coming up. And on top of that, I'm going to say this too. I think what Madi is doing in the Gambia is tremendously very helpful, and I really commend you for that and appreciate everything that you do. We need to also make sure that, like I said, the top need to know what the people's rights are and do everything, because we elected them as our people that are going to serve us. They are our servants. And Gambians need to stop making these people look like they are God, that we're going to worship them. We're going to do everything they ask us to do, even if it's wrong. Somebody need to be able to say, no, that's not right. All supervisors, all leaders of every department need to be able to stand up and say, that's not right, and we should not do that, and stop it from happening. Don't let this continue to happen in our country. You go to workforce, in offices. This is why I said, really, we need to have a reform that really should touch our civil servants as well. I mean, security reform is a must. That is way overdue, long overdue, because our security forces don't even know, some of them don't even know what people's rights are. That's why they're abusing people's rights. Somebody need to teach them a lesson, and that reform is long overdue. Now, that should be done, but we also need to get down to the civil servants. Civil servants need to know people's right at workplace, work ethics, and what can happen, cannot happen at work, so that they understand that there are certain things that you cannot do to harass people, discrimination, any type of violation that will be against people's right should not be happening at workplace. But there's a lot of that in Gambia, because I think, one, we have people that don't know how, and two, we have wrong people in positions. Okay, we have wrong people in positions that really don't know what they need to do to move the country forward and not keep us where we are or move us backwards. So all of these are things, but we really need to prioritize that also to make sure that there is reform in the civil service by initiating a proper human resources in there, human resources that know what human resource is. Human resource is not just there to be there as human resource, you conduct this, and that. No, human resource is there to protect people from any kind of abuse, from any kind of violations, from any kind of discrimination or harassment at work. If I think about recently, a few months ago, for example, in the food safety department, the director of food safety fired about 10 people one day. All of that cannot happen. Human resource there should have been a human resource director that said, no, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. They have to be at work. You have to prove to us what they did first. And before you even terminate one person, you need to know that we need to make sure we look at all of that to make sure that this person will not get terminated wrongfully, because they can turn around and sue us and the government is going to have to pay. So these are people that are there to protect the people, at the same time protect the government, because otherwise there's a lot of wrongdoing happening in our community, in our workforce, that are not being addressed correctly the way it's supposed to be. And these, one day, I'll tell you this, I guarantee you one day is going to happen. And I always say that, I've been saying this for the past 3 years, that somebody needs to set an example. If something like this happens, go take a lawyer and sue them to court, and you're going to win. Because guess what? They don't have any, I can guarantee you, in a lot of these unlawful terminations, they did not have any written documentation that shows that this is what this person did last time. And here is the documentation we gave that person that shows that if you do this again, these are the consequences. I know there are some violations that are, for example, gross misconduct in a workplace can result in immediate termination. All right. But there are certain things that somebody should not be immediately terminated for. You have to have proper documentation before you can terminate somebody from work. Otherwise, they can turn around and sue you, just like in America. You terminate somebody, they take you to EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They take you there. That EEOC is going to demand from your company, number one, do you have a written policy that shows that if somebody does this and this and that, you're going to terminate them? If the company says no, then you're done. You're done. You're finished. That's it. You're wrong in the first place. If you say you have it, they say, we want to see it. Can you bring it to us? Send it to us. And do you have any written documentation where this individual did this in the past and you warned them, or you gave them a written or verbal or any kind of counseling that's been written down? Do you have it? If you don't have it, you fail. All of these are things that need to take place to protect people. And so human rights violation is very sad that is still happening in Gambia, and we need leaders, and we need to nominate leaders. If we bring leaders in that don't know what they're doing, or that cannot do that's supposed to be done, we need to get them out. We need to, next election, we need to vote and get them out, get somebody else in there that's going to do it. If that person comes, they can't do it, we don't give them a second term. Get them out of there until we get the right person that's going to move our country forward. The right person that's going to hear that a police arrested somebody for something stupid. That person calls the police and say, why did you arrest that person? That's what we need to see from the top. Why did you arrest that person? What right do you have to arrest them? Let them go right now. And in fact, take disciplinary action against the security force. First, train them right, coach them, then hold them accountable and hold them responsible for their actions. Anytime they violate human rights, you hold them accountable. When you set that kind of example, all the police force, all the security force will do their job. Look at recently, my Fati, I heard that there is a security surveillance on him. What for? He's a Gambian citizen. He has every right to live in that country. Why do we have a security personnel monitoring his action? Is he a criminal? What criminal activity is he doing? Is he selling drugs at his house? No, we don't know. You don't know. Why do you put somebody in there, someone that used to be a minister of security, of all of our security forces? You're going to send civilians to his house to monitor him and other political party leaders? What for? This is dictatorship. This is where we end up getting into. And this is the time that our president should say, time out, stop, don't do it. It's against their human rights. Why would you go monitor? If they are criminals, call them, take them to police, go find out. Bring them for questioning, investigate. If you find anything wrong that they are doing that's wrongdoing, take action on that. If not, you let them go. But you cannot just go monitor people's activity day in and out and all of that. Who is coming in and who is going out? When did he go out? What time? What vehicle? And how is he coming back? Who did he come with? All of that nonsense. It's just a violation of people's privacy, and that should not be happening. But anyway, Mr. Jorbateh, thank you for your time again. I'll stop here and give Alice a chance to talk as well.
Thank you, Sam, for that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Alice.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you. I mean, you have said almost all what I wanted to say, but I still have some points here.
Thank you.
Madi, I can understand you in a country like Gambia today that, I mean, people have still the problem of understanding. It starts from democracy and what are my rights, you know, and all these things what you explained. And I think we have a lot of problems just due to our high rate of illiteracy. So it's not a negative thing, but it's a dangerous thing, for the politics, for all other things, I think that the majority are illiterate, and that is even using the politics today also as a tool. Everybody can see it. And they are the voters also. That's why many politicians, they always try to give them hats. So you can see the situation of Gambia. So for human rights, the people need to know first what is that. And I think you have here, Madi, a big problem, to make people understand what you are doing and what is that, And even the government, or as Sam said, even the civil servants, maybe if you ask most of them, they don't still know what you're talking about, So Gambia is at this stage, just like the democracy. I used to say it's just like a baby, so it's growing up, So I think for the people to know this and the security to school them also, that they also know and respect, because I can only respect somebody's rights when I know his rights. And I think that is also another problem, because within this time, I don't know whether the security have enough training to know what is human rights, what are the rights of the people, things like that, because that will save them. They'll even have less stress, because they used to make stress on something, which is at the end, or by the court, to be seen that it was just waste of time and waste of nerves. Because, so the fact that they didn't know, they have to act like that. So, I mean, we are in this process, because look, the 22 years of the dictatorship, people don't talk about it. The chance is not there to explain to people, and even people who knew, they have to avoid to be seen, because we knew the type of system that was going there. So I think from 2016, many things try to come to light. So the Gambian people need to first understand all these things, just like the democracy. I used to say, if you take a young man, 22 years now, he knows nothing about democracy. Am I right or not? Yeah, because where? We were in this area, and people have to change the mind. It's a kind of, how to call it, changing everything, because democracy, you cannot compare it with dictators. There are certain things happening now which people get surprised because they never knew about it, because they knew only the other side. So now it's the other side. To say freedom of speech, things like that. People have to understand it first and know the use of it and how and why. I think we are still at that level. And I think for your job, it's not an easy task in the Gambia, because people have to know first. And in this case, I would advise the Gambia government to give you people more hands, because I think it's their interest also when we live peacefully. And they are today president, maybe tomorrow they are going to be a civil servant, which is also going to benefit them again, you know. So that's why I used to advise them also, the MPs, when deciding something, they have to think that tomorrow is there, which nobody knows. Many people decided today something, today, the next day they start to say, oh, had I known, but it's gone, already written. So to give you people hands and support you people, and try to give these information and your job, for example, to the security, so that they can pave ways and make it easy for you. For example, when you are having meetings, they could even go there and make security, things like that, because it's for the greater good, for the whole Gambia, you know. I support your work definitely, and I would advise the Gambian government also to support you people. It's not that you are their enemies. No, you are there for everybody. As you said, you cannot have a servant and try to praise that servant. So there I wanted to come. So still my words. You know, our high rate of illiteracy is still our problem. And that will be our problem also in the election and everywhere. So people must first know these things. That's why I used to contribute, I mean, the list icon in this platform also, that we try to bring certain topics and try to explain to people, you know, it's a way. In other countries, they do it at the national TV, like Ghana. But we've been talking about that since 2016, you know. So this is the only chance we can give the people, which is not benefiting everybody, because not everybody is having internet, or, you know, so maybe their kids will give them the information. So maybe there will be still a little bit of effect there. We're hoping anyway. Thank you very much, and I think
Thank you, Sam.
you people, the human rights, are doing tremendous job in the Gambia, but people don't know yet.
Yeah. Thank you, Alice. All right, so I think everybody spoke. Now it's my turn for also to contribute, despite, you know, like moderating. So Madi, welcome again. You are an iconic figure for Gambia in terms of civil rights, and we really appreciate you. I just want to say this. There are a lot of things that you guys mentioned here that are worth reflecting. Some mentioned that they're monitoring. I mean, my father claimed that they were monitoring him with the cameras, surveillance cameras. That's really, really sad, because I think those are some of the things that we fought for the change, that people should be, you know, free to express their opinion, so that we can have a civil society, so that we can people can be able to live the way they need to live and decide what they get. So if you kind of, you know, put in a camera upon someone's home, or where somebody's is at, so that undermines that fight that we did. And we have to understand that right now we have a lot at stake. And we haven't talking so much about the reform agenda, but the reform agenda that brought the coalition is really been undermined or has been thrown off. I mean, I cannot blame one individual, but surely I think the leadership has to take a lion's share of the blame, because despite our nature, despite, you know, the fact that we are still, most of us are still selfish when it comes to our country. Last time I did a post, that love of country, I had to do a little video. How can we teach our people? Maybe we have to go to school and make it a curriculum. You know, how Gambian can love their country. It's okay to love yourself, but how can we start to love? Because we need re-education in this sense. People don't understand this. You know how you know? When you travel, it's one area. You come from the US or any Western countries, you go to the airport. The moment you hit the ground, the first thing would be, you know, ways to get something from you. You know, hey, and see the baggage will tell me the know, you know, customer just need, you know, I'm thinking, so these are the things, and we encourage it. It's not only one side. Those people, civil servants there, they are expecting it. They see it as a norm, and we who don't want to follow the lines are also encouraging it. So corruption is not only one side. I mean, it has to be two sides when it comes to those kind of things. You have embezzlement, of course, taking government's fund, but there are things that we want privilege. We want to be privileged for. The way we go about it is by encouraging corruption. So this entire thing has really been an issue. So the reason why I'm bringing that up, because one of our one of our reform agenda goal was to do away with this kind of thing, but it is undermining our country, and we haven't changed a bit. So going back to the surveillance thing, people should be allowed to speak up, to express their ideas. So this constructive criticism would help our leaders. Like Madi said, our leaders are our servants. But if you want to make a leader your God, that's not going to work, because they are not. The reason why they are there because we vote for them. I think our vote is more important than those leaders, because those votes are the ones that the leaders should be looking for. If you are in the US here, where the votes are, that's where the leaders sacrifice. That's where they build. Why? And they make sure that they serve their people very well in order to get elected, because it's the votes that matter. But in Gambia, what we do, instead of having these leaders work hard to earn our vote, you know what we do? These leaders come and buy us, buy our tomorrow, buy the children, buy our future, buy our children's future, by giving us few dollars, or by giving us a token of rice, and these things finish in a minute. But what decision that having to keep that leader in office, that will never go away until that leader is out of the office. And if that leader is doing something wrong, it's going to affect hundreds and thousands of people. That's why a platform like this is important, because we want to sensitize, especially this election coming, people's vote. Let's make sure that whoever is going to that poll is not going there because somebody buy them out. Let them put the national interest at stake. If President Barrow doesn't want to be voted in your own opinion, as a patriotic citizen, don't vote for him. If you feel like he's done the work based on you seeing Gambia, based on the fact that you are patriotic, then you vote for him. So this is the kind of education we need. And then this coming in line with loving your country. Loving of a country, you count the country first, and then after you put your individual interest next to it. You incorporate it there. If you are working in an office, yes, you want to get salary. But guess what? As a broad view, you need to look at, is this good for my country? If you see corruption, or if you see an opportunity to be corrupted, think about how many people are affected. If that money comes in, COVID money comes, and you appear your name on the list, like Samantha was saying, 5-6 times, how many people, that money, how many hospitals, how many health equipments are being cheated? If you are working in a hospital, medical supplies comes, and you have a pharmacy, and you divert it there, how many people are dying in Royal Victoria Hospital? How many medications are lacking just because of your act of what? Corruption, your self-interest. So everything comes to that. And we need to understand two things. Madi said, understand the fact that our leaders are our servants. We can vote them out and let them know that if you don't do it the right way, you're going to buy me out. I am going to vote against you. And I'll make sure that you don't come back here. Like those people who voted against our drafted constitution, they need to be sent a message, each and every one of them. Those MPs, they don't deserve to be voted in again. Why? Because they went against a public majority's voice and spent $100 and something million put in the trash can. So how do you expect to vote them again? So these are the kind of things that we have to be sensitized about. If we do that, we will have leaders that will serve our interests. We have servants that will be clapping for us instead of us clapping for them. And that's what exactly Madi is talking about. And us as citizens, we have to take this responsibility as well. We have to make sure that we get our votes. Let's go to each and every village, town, and make sure that those who are capable of voting get their voters card. If they need financial assistance, wherever we can do as citizens to make sure that somebody vote and let them know what they're voting for. I think it is about time. If we do that, we'll have the Gambia that we are yearning for. And you guys also mentioned one thing very important. I'm going to ask Madi this. We see Black life matters. We see women's life matters. But when is Gambian life going to matter? When are we going to see on the street of Gambia and see the Gambians' life matters? Let's not subdivide them. Let's come to the people's life that matters, which is Gambia. And Gambian people need to put it in their head that our life matters. So if our life matters, hold each and everyone accountable. Madi, I will hold you accountable. Your vote need to speak because my life matters. Alice, I will hold you accountable. Your vote need to speak because my life matters.
Yeah,
Alice,
yeah.
I will hold you accountable. I mean, Sam, I will hold you accountable. My life matters because of your vote. And this is the thing that we need to do. What each and every one of us does affects the general populace.
Right.
So if we have built that thinking and we start speaking about Gambian life matters, then Gambian deserve better. How can you stay without electricity for days? Who's responsible? Who is not doing their job? Why are funds diverted to campaign, useless campaign and other stuff? Or buy a vehicle for people? While we don't have the electricity we need? What happened to our running water? Sanitation, you name it. You have a list of things that need to be taken care of. But let me tell you, our central government is not doing enough. If you ask any of these mayors, they will tell you they have to provide their own budget. They have to do their own little thing in their own corner. There is no chain that goes down along the line. The government should have its budget and distribute it to these people. But these people had to come travel overseas, these councillors, to build their places. I have the list of the names of them. I know them because they tell me their work. So it's about time. Our central government need to be responsible, or if they stay irresponsible, they get voted out by any means necessary. So this is the thing. It's not about being not liking somebody or liking somebody. It's a loving Gambia. If you love your country, this is how you speak. Yeah. So I think that's the message that we should be focusing, instead of making accusations or claims that are unfounded. Let's sensitize our people that we are all a watchdog. We are all ambassadors of our country. If you see somebody doing bad, tell him, boy, I mean, look at Kenya. Kenya was not like this.
No.
Kenyans don't have any mineral resources as such, but they use their brain. The Kenyan people came to the table and said, we need to fix our country. They came with their constitution. They started to cut tax loopholes. It's taxes that is making Kenya today. They don't have any goals and stuff like that that Gambia don't have. But until people who we call ourselves brains are loose brains, because you know why? We are scattered. There is no unity behind Gambians. Everybody is positioned. You give Gambian position, he keeps quiet. You give Gambian money, he keeps quiet. Ake Jamfa, just because of that little individual interest right there. So I think we have a problem. Our leaders have a problem, but we have a problem. And our problem outweigh our leaders' problem because we control them, unless we don't know how. If we know how to control our leaders, they will be running after us. Hey, I need your vote. I need your vote. What are you doing? Show me your resume. What have you done the last 4 years, Mr. President? That resume doesn't fit me. I mean, that resume doesn't impress me. You are out. I think Madi can do better. This is the kind of approach we need to do. Then we will be the boss, and they will be our servants. So I think moving forward, this is a message, and we will take it from there. So I just wanna give those thoughts. So we haven't spoken about corruption, but this is an opportunity, so going second round. Mr. Jorbateh, if you can tell us something about it, and then we can come in and then we can wrap the show.
Yeah. So to all of you, the issues you've raised touches on corruption, reform, security sector, civil service reforms, but they also touch on leadership, on citizenship. And listening to all of you, what it brought to my mind is this question: as Gambians, do we sit down to ask ourselves, what kind of Gambia do we want? We are said to be 55 years old. I mean, I'm 50, almost 50. And at 50, if I don't have knowledge, I don't have skills, I don't have a house, you have to sleep, I can feed myself, I depend on people, I don't think I would consider myself a successful man, or an accomplished man, or a dignified man, And so when you look at our country, what is the profile? You talked about electricity. The vast majority of our citizens have no access to electricity. Those who have, it's so erratic. As we are talking now, I'm thinking any minute electricity can go out, and that will be the end of the show for me. I mean, if you come here from Banyu to Basse, every street is past 3 months of rains. I mean, people have to jump on bricks on the street to get into their houses, have to cross lakes upon lakes of water, every street. I mean, you go around the streets, the unkempt nature of our entire settlements, our environments, the filth, the unnecessary checkpoints, the corruption, still we cannot produce, feed ourselves. That every little thing we have to import it. We cannot produce the materials that we need for ourselves. And yet still we are a very country that is well endowed. I don't believe the wealth of a country is in diamonds and gold. Gambia is a well endowed country with huge natural resources. River Gambia is a huge, unbelievable natural resource that can create jobs through tourism, through sports, through transportation, that can provide us food. All right? We are not using it. Our land is fertile from Banyu to Basse. We don't have rocky landscape here, mountains. It's all flat land. So we can cultivate it with our river. Around the clock, that at any time of the year, you'll see green fields from Banyu to Basse. It's not happening. Our sunlight can give us electricity, huge resource. We are not utilizing it. Anything can grow on our land. Anything can grow on our land. So we have an ocean filled with fish. We can use it for sports. We can use it for tourism. All this is revenue and unemployment. So what is it on earth that Gambia doesn't have to make this country as developed as Germany, as Singapore, as UK, as the United States? Within 55 years. Why cannot we do that? We have the means, we have the opportunities, we have the potential, we have the resources to have made this country as advanced as any advanced country in the world today. In 55 years, we have the capacity, but why did we fail? So that all the issues you raise, it raises the question, really, as Gambians, do we really know what kind of Gambia we want? What kind of life we want? On that very first day of independence, did we ask ourselves, what kind of Gambia do we want when we send the colonialists out of the country? So when you look at it, 1965, they said we had independence. Did we sit down, that's 1965, as Gambians to say, look, from now, we are not a colonized people. We are ourselves. You know, in our cultures, in our different ethnic groups, there's huge resource there for education, for employment. Imagine you have an evening of cultural dishes of the Gambia, the Jola, the Fula, the Mandinka, the Wolof, the, Sarakule, let us bring our national dishes. What a beautiful evening that everyone will be so fed. Imagine we said, well, what are our national dresses? The Mandinka dress, the Wolof, the Jola, the Fula. I mean, the music, the folk tales, the legends. I mean, instead of giving Tom and Jerry to our children, or Baba Black Sheep and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, what can we learn from our cultures to put into our schools?
Yeah.
But that comes because, as a people, we should have been thinking like, what kind of Gambia do we want? So that we see in our culture, there's huge resource there for education, for self-upliftment, for self-actualization, for dignity. But did we use it? Just like the River Gambia, did we use it? So in 1965, we never sat down to ask ourselves what kind of Gambia we want. Then we moved on, 10, 15 years. What did we have? A military, an armed insurrection, 1981. But 1981, when it happened, did we sit down to ask ourselves, how come some bunch of Gambians, within 15 years of independence, would pick up arms to want to change the Gambia through force? We set up commissions, tried people, put people in prison, all of that. But did we really sit down to say, what is fundamentally wrong with our republic? That after 15 years, this is what could happen. Are we on the right track? We did not do that. 1981, we moved on. 15 years later, 1994, we have a military coup. An army we set up just 10 years back. And that army, the military coup, what did they do? Set up commissions and all of that. And we never sat down and said, look, 1994, what is really wrong with our republic? That we would have our own soldiers want to overthrow our democratically elected government. See, we didn't raise those questions. Only to see us create a whole new dictatorship, never seen before, for 20 years. At the end, we were unable to even address that ourselves, that the whole world has to come to save us from ourselves. Because if the economic forces did not come, if the international community did not come, we would have been in a civil war right now, killing each other. But 2016 happened, 2017, we are now 4 years back. Ahead of that, we never sat down still to ask ourselves, really, what is wrong with us? That we would have to have 1981. We had 1994. We had 2016 impasse. So what is really wrong with us? What kind of Gambia? On top of all of this, we have, such a deplorable country. Such a deplorable country. It cannot feed itself. It doesn't have the hospitals, the schools. The preventable diseases are killing our people. Our people are running in the back way. Our best brains are all outside in the Gambia. What is wrong with us? Do we recognize that something is fundamentally wrong with us as a people?
Yeah.
So this is the issue. All of the things you raise brings the whole issue to that question. What kind of Gambia do we want? Do we sit down as Gambians? We even had a referendum. A constitution building process. A whole government went to create a CRC. They will go and consult with all Gambians. They did a draft. We took it to the National Assembly. We start to hit each other because of that constitution. As if people are not asking themselves, what is this about? What is this about? Some are thinking of the term limit of one person as president. Some are thinking of themselves as a tribe or a party or a religion. People didn't even have time. Look, why did we say we want a new constitution? What do we want to create? What are we? We said we are a democratic republic. What is a democratic republic? Some will claim you can have these rights, but these other rights, no, we will not accept these other rights because this right is against my culture, against my religion, and all of. Yet you claim to be a democratic republic. Do you even know what is a democratic republic? See, Gambians need to ask themselves. That's why I said we need to know ourselves. Because if we don't know ourselves, we cannot create ourselves. See? And so because of that, leadership comes. What kind of leadership do we have? In 1965, did we have the leadership that understood the circumstances of the Gambia at that time? The circumstances of Africa and the world at that time had a vision to say what kind of Gambia we have to create. And did they mobilize, organize our people along a path to say this is the kind of society a sovereign republic requires to have? All right? And then we remove that leadership. 94, we got a new leadership. Does that leadership also have that kind of idea, vision? Yeah? Does it have it? That as leaders of today, 1994, we want to create a new kind of Gambia that, upholds the dignity of Gambians, that gives Gambians a high standard of living, that gives Gambians respect, that makes Gambians love each other and embrace each other, that makes Gambians honest, patriotic, decent citizens. Was that leadership available in 1994? The history is there. It appears, it is very clear that leadership wasn't there. Then we had a new leadership, 2017 today. Is that leadership thinking in terms of that? It is clear that this leadership we have currently has no idea about what is a democratic republic. What does the sovereign citizens of the Gambia deserve? So it's the same mentality, the same thinking, that it is about me and I'm here today, how much I can get, how much I can control, how much I can own, regardless of what the citizens need or want. And sadly, we the citizens, we embrace that leadership. See, Thomas Sankara said something in Burkina Faso in 1983-84. A soldier without political education is a virtual criminal. But Sankara was a soldier and was addressing soldiers. We can bring that to the level of the citizens. To say a citizen without political education is a virtual criminal or a virtual victim. A citizen who has no sense of sovereignty, who has no consciousness, political awareness, to realize that as a citizen, I'm the embodiment of power, of authority, of legitimacy in this country, that public servants are my servants, that they are there to serve me, and I have a duty to check them. If you lack that kind of consciousness, what happens is you either don't check them, all right, and then they abuse you, then you become a victim. They get corrupt, they brutalize you in terms of police brutality, you are a victim. Or you become a criminal, because even when they do that, you still support them, you strengthen them, you defend them, you justify them. So you become a criminal like the public officer. So this is the two citizens we have in the Gambia. We are either victims or we are either criminals. And when you check it, we are both, in fact. We are both victims and we are both criminals. Because those who are perpetuating that bad on the Jammeh, on the Jawara, on the Barrow, they at the same time turn into victims at one point. Because they get arrested, they get jailed, they get killed. Yeah, at one point, if you on the Jammeh, if you go to mile 2, it's a whole government sitting there. CDS, IGP, Director Generals, Ministers, Secretary Generals, he dumps them there. People who defended him, party members, family members, he dumped them there in mile 2. All of them were killed. So that is the citizenship. All right, and until we clear this equation, we cannot address corruption. Because this corruption, we are contributing to it by our defending the status quo, the leadership that is corrupt already. And so we are also perpetuating police brutality. Like right now, every Gambian should be seriously incensed, angry, genuinely, that after all the brutality we went through in 22 years, that we'll have a leadership like we have today on the borough, you maintain the same institutions as they were in the NIA, the police, the military, the prisons, and so on, not to talk of the public institutions, but the same officers who were running those institutions, you keep them in place again. How do you expect police brutality to go? Why should Borgin Boop still be in our police force, for example? It is This Friday coming is going to be 1 month since the National Human Rights Commission submitted a report to the IGP or to the Minister of Interior on the investigation on Gorkimbu when he was interdicted. Until today, the IGP, the Minister of Interior, the President has not come out to speak to the police brutality of Gorkimbu and the anti-crime unit. This Friday, let us all check this Friday what is going to happen from tomorrow, Monday, to Friday, whether they are going to respond to that report and the recommendations in that report. But we have so many reports like that. What investigation came out of Haruna Jatta's death? Because you talked about Black Lives Matter, Women's Lives Matter, Gambian Lives Matter. Yes, that is what I said in June when we held the Black Lives Matter protest in front of the US Embassy, that it is not just Black Lives Matter in the United States, it's about Black lives in the Gambia, Gambian lives. Haruna Jatta, they said there was going to be an investigation. Was it done? Where's the report? Who is held accountable? What about Usman Dabo? Was it done? Where is the report? Who is held accountable? What about, Keba Seka, Gambian University student killed by the police? What is done? I mean, more than 1 year, they said the matter is in court. Where is it going? So how can we end police brutality when we don't have a leadership with a vision, a leadership that understands the Gambia circumstances, the history and the experience of the Gambia, out of colonialism, the circumstances of Africa, of the world, to that and see this is the kind of Gambia, this is the kind of path we should follow to create a Gambia we want, we deserve. So that leadership, if it is not available, and which is not available 55 years down the line, so how can we change this Gambia? Now, the only way to change it is to have citizens, conscious citizens, citizens with serious political education, prepared to defend the Republic. But how many Gambians are prepared to defend the Republic? So our country is in a very sorry state, my brothers. In one sense, I have lost hope that in my lifetime, we are not going to get the Gambia we want. Because if I am 50, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, when I'm 70, what I see happening in this country doesn't tell me, we are going to see change in the next 25 years to 50 years. That's not in my lifetime and your lifetime. So where are we going to change? I don't see in our citizens, the vast majority of our citizens, that commitment, that awareness in the first place, that awareness that they are sovereign citizens and they are prepared to defend the sovereignty of the Gambia and their citizenship. I don't see that. I don't see in our citizens that commitment, understanding of the need for accountability, that they are going to make sure that they hold the state accountable. I don't see that. I don't see in our leadership right now that idea, that culture of accountability, that they are prepared to put accountability in the center of what they are doing. So Barrow does not even seem to know what is accountability, much more to ensure, to insist on accountability across the government. The National Assembly, which is the heart of our accountability in our governance, in our development, is not in that position to stand by its ground, to demand accountability from the executive or take measures through powers and tools that have been given to them by the Constitution and the standing orders. So if the National Assembly cannot check the executive, cannot stop the executive, right now the executive has led a massive, last week, a massive public gathering in Yomi. Today, they are in Basse. At a time when we have regulations to stop public gatherings to combat the spread of COVID, why would just to go and lay a foundation stone of a market, would it require thousands of people if this is nation building? Why can't the president and a few officials of him go straight to that market with few officials from the local authorities there, lay the market and come back? Why do we have to have fanfare? I mean, drumming, for what purpose? For what purpose? Those people are not coming there to validate that laying of that foundation stone. They are not going to build that market today. They are just there for fanfare at a time when we have COVID in this country. Is that not the height of irresponsibility? of poor leadership. So that tells you that leadership is not serious about the development of this country. And we, the citizens of the country, we accept that. You see? So this is the tragedy that is facing this country. You know, so we don't have the leadership, we don't have the citizenship. I mean, and consequently, we don't have the institutions because the institutions remain the same. I mean, security sector reform. Those two pillars of our governance and development is the public service and the security sector. You know, the public service is the engine of growth of any country, not just the Gambia, but whether it's Germany or the United States or Japan, any country that has advanced is because they have an efficient, effective, professional, civil service. If you don't have that, the private sector will not work. If you don't have that, corruption will become the order of the day. If you don't have that efficient civil service, there will be abuse, plunder of public resources all throughout. So the public service has to be a unit that is so efficient, so effective, that abides by the rule of law, that enforces the law to the letter without fear or favor. That kind of civil service is what develops Germany or United States or France or Sweden or Japan or any country you see that is advanced today in a democracy, is because they have a very efficient, effective, civil service. But if you have a civil service that is, situated on cronyism, on corruption, on favoritism, on nepotism, that lacks accountability in any way you can imagine, that lacks transparency you can imagine, that is not responsive at all. You will see on our roads, a road would be broken down, a lamp pole would collapse, and for NAWEC to come days before they respond. They are not responsive. Or for the local authorities or the government itself to come and address this problem in the community, it takes days, months, as if nobody is in charge, because no one is held accountable. When I went to Europe, when I went to America, I got shocked, amazed at the efficiency of the public transport system. You know, the public transport system. It's one thing that just amazes me, that for decades, the bus service is still on time. The train service is still on time. Why is that the case? It's not because they are white people or they are in Europe, but what I see is at the heart of that public transport system is accountability. Somebody is put in charge, somebody is checked. If you fail to deliver, you face sanctions. That's why things work efficiently in Europe and America. But when you have a system like the Gambia, where you face no accountability, you are given a job, when you deliver or not, nobody asks you. You face no sanctions. Why will you deliver? That's a human nature. If there's no accountability, nothing works. Accountability is what tells us whether we are making progress or whether we are making failure. Accountability is what tells us whether there'll be electricity or there'll be no electricity, and nothing happens. Accountability is what tells us whether human rights will be respected and protected or they will be violated. Accountability is what determines that. So right now, the system in the Gambia is such that the accountability is so weak, it tells you that human rights will continue to be violated every day. This is why a Gambian will die giving birth to a Gambian in a public health hospital, and nobody is held accountable for that. And no one should be held accountable more than the executive and the National Assembly, because they are the ones in charge of the institutions. They are the ones in charge of our resources. They distribute the resources. So if a Gambian should die in a public hospital, simply because the necessary drugs are not there, simply because the necessary expertise is not there, simply because the necessary equipment is not there, no one is responsible. No one is killing a woman other than the executive and National Assembly. They're the ones killing Gambians in our health sector. They're the ones responsible for the poor education in our public schools. They're the ones responsible for the poor delivery of water and electricity in our society. They're the ones responsible for the poor roads, the poor community development in our society. No one is responsible but the executive and National Assembly, because between them, they're the ones responsible to create institutions, set performance targets, objectives for those institutions, employ people, provide them resources so that they deliver. And if those institutions fail to deliver, then who is responsible? So we, the citizens of the Gambia, this is what we got to understand. You know. So, brothers, you know, this issue of the Gambia, we can.
Yeah, man, that's Gambia.
You know, but the point is to conclude. Gambia is not moving. You know, Gambia for me is a dead country because Gambia doesn't have the leadership it requires. It doesn't have the citizenship it requires. Our leadership is as poor as our citizenship. And until our citizens upgrade themselves to first of all know themselves as human beings, what I can take, what I deserve, that I'm not a donkey. Because remember, in this we all and cows, are they not Gambian citizens? You know? So but we are human beings. And we are the ones who have those rights to vote, because donkeys don't vote in this country. We don't appoint donkeys, we appoint human beings. So we, the human beings, got to know we are a different kind of citizen. Because we are the human beings, we are the ones with the thinking capacity. We are the ones who have dignity. I mean, where we claim animal rights, what about human beings? So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madi.
Thank you, Madi.
Citizens and our leadership to get on the right track, which is not the case since independence.
Yeah,
thank you, Madi. Stay on for some question, but Alice need to go for another meeting. So he can, I mean, no,
okay.
Sam.
Yeah, sorry, Madi, I just want to thank you for, again, elaborating on all of this great, important stuff that you just said. And unfortunately, I ran out of time. The first Sunday of every month, I host a meeting for my hometown. And today is the first Sunday of the month, and it's 1 o'clock, about 1 o'clock. So I'm going to make this short and simple. You know, all of what Madi was saying was part of the reason I said back in 2018 that Gambia now needs to start a presidential debate, because leadership is very important. Leadership is leading by example, not by force. We need to make sure that we select the right leadership that will bring all this mindset, or people with this kind of mindset, people that are going to come in and do something for our country. That's why back in 2018, I proposed this. The next election, we should have a presidential debate. All the presidential candidates need to be on stage. This should be something that is hosted by the IEC with the media stations. They come out and have all presidential candidates stand up there on their own, no help, no assistance, and they ask questions about our country. How are you going to change? How are you going to make sure that human rights are preserved in this country? We ask every single candidate, how are you going to change our healthcare system? How are you going to provide a better security system or reform in our country? What about our civil service reform? Farmers should come in and talk about what are you going to do as a president to bring better farming into our country? We need to have questions about what are you going to do to utilize our river Gambia? How about our fishery? What are you going to do to create jobs for our youths to be able to work on our own rivers and not allow foreign investors and Chinese to come and invade our rivers and destroy our fish? How are you going to make sure that there is no more police brutality in this country? How are you going to make sure that our mothers are protected when they are going to give birth to the next generation? What are you going to do about Gambia's infrastructure, electricity, water, telecommunication, all of it? What are you going to do? They need to ask, I mean, and many more. Unfortunately, I ran out of time. I could say more, but I ran out of time. But these are all questions that need to be asked each candidate. We let them speak for themselves, because before we buy something, meaning before we vote for a candidate, we need to know who that candidate is and what is that person going to do for our country. If Gambians know this, this is going to change people's mind. After that debate, you will see people crossing carpet, because they will now realize, oh, the leader that we're supporting had no idea He has no clue. This person should not be running our country. I'm going to vote for so and so. And that's democracy. This is what we need to encourage. But anyway,
Right.
like I said, I'm going to let you guys go. I'll watch the rest of it afterwards. So thank you all. And thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Jorbateh. I
Sam.
really appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
Sam.
Mr.
Thank you.
Sawaneh and
Sam.
Alice, thanks very much. I appreciate you all. So I'll
Take
talk
care.
with
Yeah.
you all later.
Likewise,
Right.
man.
All right. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Yep.
Samuel.
Yeah. So, Mr. Jorbateh, so let's let Alice come in. We have some few questions here.
Okay.
Perhaps to ask that before we close.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, all of you. But Madi, what you were saying, I used to say that also. I think that's where our problem is. You know, I used to say many people don't know. We started with human rights. They don't know their rights. Why? And there are a lot of things we used to talk about. Sometimes I used to say, what are our opposition doing? Because this should have been their words. You understand? Like the Minister of Health was by the Parliament, and what he said there, I just commented because I give a very high respect to this person. We are thankful to know that something was going on there, and we were expecting that something happened, but till today you hear nothing. So where is that money gone? And so nobody will comment on it. Even if they use it to make their election next year, nobody knows. And we need transparency. So what I commented was, in fact, these are should not have been his words. These words should have come from the opposition, from the parliamentarians themselves, you know. But he's a patriot, and he was trying to clean himself because he knows where the boat is going. Because if he hadn't done that today, people will say he took the money. That means he knows where he is. He's in the Gambia. We are having a daily life corruption. So I can just say, it's a daily life. So, and that to change it, look at the anti-corruption bill, board bill. We've been saying that since 2016. So now I have that it's tabled on in the parliament. And it should have been the first bill to be signed when we are patriotic Gambians, unlike other countries, to be signed and built. So why is it taking after 4 years? So this is showing you what kind of society we are. You understand? Unless we try to see Gambia and love it with heart and try to be real to ourselves, no fake life, not interest, doing things for someone himself, only that can help us to go forward. Because all these problems we have right now in Gambia, if I say it, people laugh. They are all products of corruption. They are fruits of corruption. Even the Constitution is a fruit of corruption. Had it been that there is no corruption, then we would not even talk about the Constitution. You understand what I mean? I don't want to say much about it, but I'm just telling you, all these problems are from somewhere. And unless we eradicate that in the Gambia, we'll have no freedom. And next, you should not lose hope. Gambia can change anytime. Jammeh never thought about it, but it happened. Because God never tell the people what's happening tomorrow. Keep that in mind. So I don't lose hope. Gambia will go forward. I mean, when we work together, all Gambians together, know that it's our country. Nobody will help us unless people sit outside and laugh about us. So we have to realize that and try to say, okay, look, we have to do something now. About the corruption. Look, Gambia is now ranked at one of the highest corruption countries from 2017. And many people don't know that. So why? That means we have to change something, And to go forward, we need to do, as I used to say, a lot of things. We have to school not only the security, but people have to know their rights, or if possible, they even change the curriculum and make sure that they always teach the people about human rights, about the constitution, because if you see a lot of problems we have there now, I will not say none of the MPs, but I realize sometimes that reading the book every day, when there is something, as a member of parliament, I mean, sometimes I do ask myself also, they have enough time to go through. That if you ask them any section article, it should come out like, they should sleep with the book, know the rights and the rights of Gambians. Then we would not have this action and theater at the parliament because of a constitution, So, but that is not gone. Even that one, I still have hope that we can still change it because it's very short. If we should just throw away a poor country like Gambia, 116 million, just like that, just because of our ignorance or interest, or I don't know, because I don't know how you can call it. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And after we start begging, I think this time we'll have problem to beg because the person giving you money to leave doesn't mean that he has no problems. They are having their problems, but they are sacrificing. So when they give you that money and realize that you don't know the worth of it, I think it will be a problem when you come and ask again. And they used to say, when two elephants fight, only the grass will suffer. So he's going to suffer the Gambians again. So the Gambians should know that last time somebody asked that question, Mr. Sawaneh, a lady, I wanted to answer, and then I got problem with the Milan. That's what I always used to say. People have to know the use of their voting cards. They have to know the power of their voting cards. And they have to know what is voting cards. What can I do with my voting cards? It's not just a paper. You can change the country, you can change the laws, you can throw away your MPs, you can do everything. Even the president, you can kick him out because of your voting card. So unless Gambians know the use of it and the power of it and their rights, when we talk about human rights, that's the only way they can do everything, and it's their power. But many people don't know it. So why? We're talking about our high rate of illiteracy again. You understand? So I think that is also a big problem, where even if somebody is corrupt, nobody can know it. Because if my education is not too far, I would not know that Mr. Sawaneh is corrupt. He can blow the bank and come and give me $50. I start to praise him. Oh, he's a good man. Without knowing that it's my own money. So that thing to know, you need a level of education. And that is our problem, because 80% they're talking about, I don't know, and they are the voters of Gambia. So you see our problem? Unless we bring these people through civic education, that they know their rights in any way, and which is a danger for presidents. That's why most of the time they are not interested for schools, African presidents, they're not interested for schools, education of the folk and so, because once they know, it's a danger for them. So it's better keeping them there so that they can leave, because, as we know African presidents, this is not only for Barrow, So, I mean, that's my only advice. I mean, with corruption, let us hope that the bill, they sign it and then try to put it in action, because there are a lot of things happening just because we don't have that. And that is the same. We can talk about everything. We can talk about everything. But when you follow it, at the end, it will show you that you are in a corrupted place. And these are fruits of corruption. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. So this comes to the question session, Mr. Jorbateh, and this is gonna be brief. So you mentioned something. How can we know? We don't know what we want. So my question is, how can we know what we want if we don't know it? Because it looks like all these ideas, all these things you're talking about, you mentioned, we still don't know what Gambian. This is the question, the fundamental question that Gambians need to ask. In your thought, how can we know what we want? Because this is very critical.
Yeah, a critical question. But I think all that folks got to do is to be honest, be prepared to critique oneself, to be prepared to study your environment. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the whole essence of a human being. I mean, today we're talking about a computer and having a live conversation like this. We did not arrive here, just today. We arrived here because by design, human beings put thoughts to their lives. And as I was saying at the beginning, our whole idea, of human beings, the knowledge and the skills that we have is to create a better life for ourselves. And that is to know ourselves, to know our environment, and to dominate it. And in that process, we got to create tools, tools to make other tools, tools to do things, cultivate the land, to write, tools to even cure ourselves. And so if we are a democratic republic, for example, as Gambia, one can say the state has a duty to raise the awareness of citizens about the laws that we have, so you know your rights. And, Alex, here, one can talk about literacy or illiteracy, but whether we know how to read and write in English language or not, it is still not an excuse for us not to know our rights, because we have our languages. We can express ourselves in our languages so that we are educated politically to know what we are as a democratic republic. What does that mean? To discuss the issue of citizenship. So the state has that duty, political parties have that duty, CSO, civil society has that duty, but also each and every individual, just as a human being, whether you are from Boraba or Basse or, Banjul, you should take time to reflect on your life. The ancient, our ancestors in ancient Egypt used to say, the unexamined life is not worth living. So as a human being, you should have an ability to examine your life. At the end of the day, from morning till evening, let me examine my life to look at my challenges, my gains, my, successes and so on, to see how to get myself better tomorrow. So at the minimum, you and I, every other citizen, should be able to ask yourself, but I'm a human being, what is the level that I should be at? I'm a citizen, what do I deserve as a Gambian? What should Gambia benefit me? What should I benefit, from the Gambia? But also, what should I contribute to this country? What should be my contribution? Am I a slave to Alex? Am I a slave to whom? Is he a slave to so basic questions, so that when you begin to ask yourself those things, for me, because me, as I am right now, my sense of worth, my sense of myself, my sovereignty is such that even if my father is the president of the Gambia, and he is corrupt, he is oppressive, I'm going to stand against him. Because I know sooner or later, I will also be touched. Right. Yes, I know sooner or later I'll also be touched. And, if I really love my father, I should realize that if he is corrupt and oppressive, abusing people's rights, he is not going to be saved one day. Because the history is there. The history is there in our lifetime. Which dictator have you seen who ended up successful? Which dictator? No. After decades, you are either killed, you are sent to jail, you are exiled, above all, you are disgraced all over. Today, when you say the name Sani Abacha, who celebrates Sani Abacha? Who truly celebrates Hitler? Or Idi Amin? Or Pinochet? When we want to give examples of shameful people, these are the names we use. So who wants your father to be an example of shame? So common sense tells you, even if my father is the president, I will fight him to make sure he's on the right track, so that one day when we say Nelson Mandela, who doesn't celebrate Nelson Mandela? So these things are very simple things, but do we really take time as human beings to reflect on these things? So if you love Barrow, for example, you claim Barrow is whatever, you love him, it is to guide him to say, look, Barrow, do the right thing. That is in your own personal interest. Learn from the example of Yaya Jammeh. Even Jawara, who did not, massacre people like Jammeh did. What happened? He was kicked out and then exiled. You know, even there. So why can't you just tell Barrow, if you really love him, you care about him, you want him to succeed, why can't you just tell him, my brother, look, you know, uncle, I mean, dad, I mean, fellow, look, do the right thing, follow the law, you know, make sure you deliver to, to Gambians as required by the law. I mean, is that a problem? Is that difficult? So that awareness, Momodou, therefore, is for us to create it ourselves. And you can get, the state can come and educate us, but even the state can come and educate. You can refuse to be educated. You can refuse to accept it. So, Alex, there are a lot of people who are very well educated, more than me and you, but their political awareness is so low that you wonder whether these people ever went to school.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. If I say that Mr. Sawaneh used to laugh, I used to tell him that we are full of intellectual illiterates.
Yeah.
Because
they leave my intellectual folks alone. They leave my intellectual folks alone, man.
So just writing English and speaking English doesn't mean that they know a lot. And we
but it's true.
having a
It is
lot of
true.
it.
So that brings me to the second question here. Alice, if you finish here. You want to say something?
I just wanted to say, I mean, when he is finished, Madi, are you okay?
Yeah, no, I have questions here, but if you want to say something, quick, I can.
Yeah, I mean, we can also just close it because I just wanted to.
Okay, so let me ask this question quickly, please.
Okay.
Okay, Madi, the leadership accountability and citizen accountability is what the coalition fought for, right? What the coalition wanted, right? And then that's why they came together with a very wonderful thoughts. So what do you think happened? Why can't we get to this destiny? Why is it that we failed, our people? What happened?
Yeah,
What happened? We will ask ourselves, what happened? We had it. We have, we were all here. We didn't travel outside this planet. We were all here. What happened? And we let this opportunity slip. This is the saddest. I mean, this is the thing that we will forever remember. And now it looks like we are going to another direction. So it's like uncontrollable direction.
Yeah, I think generally what I can say is our leaders across the board failed us from 2016. I'm not gonna get to calling individual names or like degrees of failure, but certainly some failed more than us and so on. I think I have spoken about that many times across, but just not to misdirect or create unnecessary controversy, because this is one of the typical tendencies of Gambians. We are still sort of, the large extent, unable to see the bigger picture, and so we bring things down to those things, very personal, petty things. But as a collective, the coalition leadership, I think as a collective they failed us, because I believe the people who constituted the coalition are senior Gambians and adult Gambians. If I'm 50, they are all above 50. And I just put myself in anyone's position, that if I'm in anyone's position, I will go my way to follow every other person to say, look, let us come back, let us do this. You know what I'm saying? So if I were in Mr. Dabo's position, for example, I would go and follow all the other parties to say, look, let us salvage this country for our children, our grandchildren. If I'm in Fatma Tambajang's position, I will do that. If I'm in Halifa Salah's position, or Sidi Ajata, or Hamad Ba, or OJ, all right, or my Fati, that's the position I'm going to take. If I see some of the folks drifting away, I'll go to you and say, look, my friend, you are drifting away. This is not the agreement. Please come back. And I'll use every effort to make sure I bring that back. I mean, how long and how much I will do that, I can tell, but I will do it so long as I'm alive. So, and I think that is where the failure is, because, we can sit here, as I said, to look at individually all of that. But of course, we know some, fumbled seriously, created so much damage to it. But, others also, even if I damaged it, nothing stops Alex or Momodou to say, hey, come back to Madi. Look, Madi, you are really going off track. Please come back. All because you want to demonstrate that sense of responsible leadership that, look, I'm now 60, 70 years. What more do I have in this country? I want to salvage this country. So I think selfishness, ego, I think corruption, drove all of them. Not everyone was corrupt, not everyone was selfish, not everyone had an ego, all right? But yes, when I look at the collective, I see, in all of them elements of these things, such that it prevented them, to give themselves up, to go and do, take every step to save this country. Maybe they did it privately, I don't know. But I imagine if I'm a member of the coalition, a long time, when Barrow was forming the cabinet, I will come to him to say, look, Barrow, we have an MOU. Please follow that to form your cabinet. And I'll come public to say, look, I went to see Barrow today to tell him, because all that also would put pressure on him to realize, okay, somebody made an effort to go and meet him. All right? So if they all brought that transparency, it would help us a lot. But I think, for me, they all failed at different levels, the leadership. And so we are in this situation now, and we are getting more and more polarized, because until now, these leaders, they are not talking to each other. They don't create the impression that they trust each other, they respect, have regard for each other. And that is reflecting on their supporters, and therefore further polarizing our society. But I feel, as senior citizens, I would have done that. I'm an elder in my community in Boraba, and things happen there. We have a Boraba association, and I call people on the ground. I said, look, you are going off track. Let's do this. I come publicly and say, look, you are an adult leader. This is not on the right way. Come on the right way. Just to put pressure on them. You see, and until we hold each other accountable, all right, and by providing all the necessary opportunities for each other to correct ourselves, we will be in that acrimonious situation, relationship, where we will just be blaming each other, attacking each other, and for the rank and file maybe, but for leadership, and maybe I should take this opportunity to therefore appeal to all those coalition leaders, from Adama Barrow to the UDP leadership, the DOI leadership, the NRP leadership, the PPP leadership, Pamela Tambajang, Ture, and all of them to say, look, call each other in a room and realize that this country is drifting away. This country is splitting. This country is dead. At the end of the day, what does Asari Ture want, for example? What does Usaini Dabo want, or Halifa Sallah? What do you want in life? When you are 60, 70 years old, what more do you want? Do you want to preside over something like this? Mr. Barrow, you are the president. Even if it stops here right now, Mr. Barrow, you have, because the greatest honor any citizen can have is for your fellow citizens to elect you and appoint you in public service. That's an honor that for one day is enough for me to do good within that one day and step aside. So if you've done 3-4 years You are ex-president. That's even an ex-president's act. That creates benefits for you, benefits that for the rest of your life you will not be poor. Really. I mean, so Mr. Barrow, what do you want in life? You know, your salary every year is $3 million. You don't need to spend it because your education, your feeding, your housing, your clothing, your transportation is all paid by the state. So you have $3 million a year untaxed. So can Usainu Dabo go and meet Halifa, and Halifa and Oji and talk to Mr. Barrow? Mr. Barrow, what do you want in life? You want to be a billionaire? You want to end up like Yaya Jammeh? Or somebody was. So, I think we need to make our leaders take a step back and, stop all this grandstanding and a big man attitude or, some kind of special status kind of, mentality and realize, look, if I'm an elder in this society, 70% of our population are below 35 years. I'm older than more than half of the Gambia. So I'm a senior citizen already at 50. Imagine if you are 70. Yeah. You are very few people who are at that level. Why do you want to get into little quarrels? If Usainu retires today or Halifa retires today or Syria, you are not going to be desperate. I'm sure even Momodou would send you fuel coupons or send you, for your Tabaski or something like that. So what are you fighting about? Why don't you take that leadership, that responsibility as citizens of this country and go to Barrow, look, Usainu, Halifa, Syria, Fatmata, even Henry Gomez, my Fatih Ahmad, let's go and talk to Barrow for our children, for our grandchildren. Because more than half of the 3/4 of the Gambia are your grandchildren already. So let's go there and tell Mr. Barrow, look, Mr. Barrow, what is this? What do you want? So I think the leadership that I hope they will all sit back and reflect, and realize that, the path that they are on, the battle they are fighting is not worth fighting. The path they are on is not worth to be on that path, really. All these rank and file behind you, all these supporters behind you, don't let them, generate some sort of feeling in you that makes you forget that, look, I'm a senior citizen. I'm one of the few, top Gambians there who saw the First Republic, the Second Republic, who saw colonialism, and I have few more years to live. The rest of that, let me utilize it to salvage this country. I think that's just what they need to do.
Right.
So, Madi, thank you so much. It looks like in your analysis, they created it and they messed it up. And then it can't be one person. So, and then that's also an observation of many. It was an ideal, thing that was created that if it had implemented well, we would have Gambia, new Gambia that we wanted. But it slips away. Now, with the constitution down in the garbage can, wow, what is your thought on that? Is it done or is it dead or is it coming back?
Well, it's dead as it happened on the floor of the parliament last week or 2 weeks ago. But it can come back, and it all comes back to the same narrative. Like, if you are a Gambian in the National Assembly, the Constitution, Section 112, states that National Assembly members shall perform their functions according to their conscience and in the national interest. If you really went into the National Assembly with your conscience, because conscience is not wrong. Conscience is not about injustice. Conscience is not dishonesty. You do wrong, your conscience tells you this is wrong. So conscience is about what is right, what is just, what is good. So if you had gone into that National Assembly with that conscience, with that national interest in your heart, in your mind, you should have voted yes for this referendum, for this draft constitution. Now, even if you feel there are things you need to change, and your Minister of Justice told you, yes, you have the legal authority to change it, that is even more opportunity therefore then, take it and edit it. But you cannot just say, no, full stop. Then it means you are not even interested in this country at all.
That's why I said they needed to vote it out.
Yeah. So I mean, and for me, anyone who voted against this draft constitution, I doubt whether you have any legitimacy to govern anymore, to be in the National Assembly. For me, you have no more legitimacy.
Yeah, because you have an option. You have an option to change it. You know, there's an option on the table to discuss and make adjustments. Yeah.
But even there, the president himself, I mean, the way he has handled this constitution building process tells me he has no interest whatsoever to fulfill his own promise as a candidate, is committed to building a new Gambia. And for me, I don't see what legitimacy Barrow has anymore to govern, because he has completely shown his dislike for this draft constitution.
This is his baby, right? He created this, and then now he killed it.
So, you know, now, well, it's up to him to repair. But I think we, the citizens, we should make him take action. You see, Momodou, one of the reasons why accountability is poor in this country is that there are no risks for politicians. There are no consequences for the decisions and actions that they take. And I tell people all the time, democracy is not delivered by the president or the National Assembly or the IGP. You are in America. You are in Germany. When you closely check the democratic process there, you know the politicians act because they know the citizens will make them pay for whatever decisions that they take. They will pay because the citizens will either rise up to protest or will challenge them in the courts or would vote them out. So they make sure there is consequence.
Promise and fail, you have it only once.
Yeah. It's only in the Gambia and Africa where politicians make terrible decisions, they underperform, they are corrupt, and nothing happens, impunity prevails. And until we make our politicians pay, we are not going to get democracy and good governance and sustainable development. So for me right now, if I can, I'm going to gather 500,000 Gambians. We go and occupy McCarthy Square for 3 months until, unless the president comes and repair this damage. That's the consequence we got to make them pay. But
how many Gambians do that?
But that's the citizenship I'm talking about. You see, so until we make our politicians pay, it isn't going to happen. Number two, there's a very serious false narrative that you hear our people say, that politics is about interests, that politics is about not permanent friends, it's permanent interest. All right? Now,
yeah. It doesn't have permanent enemies, yeah.
Yeah, because politics is not about lies. Politics is about truth. Politics is about values and standards. Because politics is about life and death of citizens. That's what politics is about, life and death of citizens. The reason Gambians are dying at the hospital is politics. Because Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital, how well it will be equipped or not depends on how much resources the state, the executive, and the National Assembly allocate to it. And then check to make sure those resources are put into proper use. And then check to make sure the workers in the other hospital work according to their terms of reference and efficiently. But a minister of health stood on the floor of the parliament and said there is corruption in his ministry. Until today,
nobody did anything.
Nobody took action. Yeah. PMO did not take action. The ministry did not take action. The police did not take action. The National Assembly did not take action. So meaning a minister, head of the ministry, declares corruption in his ministry, nobody takes action, no accountability. So if somebody dies now in Fatato Health Center, in Bansang Hospital, in Buyam Hospital, in Farafanya Hospital, at Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital, Serakunda Hospital, any public hospital in this country, nobody is killing that person other than the executive and the National Assembly, yet nobody holds them to account. No risk. And then they tell us politics about permanent interest or permanent interest. No, politics is a life and death issue. Right. That is what citizens get to realize, that when we vote for somebody, we are not voting you for your personal interest or your friends or whatever. We are voting you to live or to die. We vote for you. To live or to die, and to live in comfort, in dignity, in protection, in safety, in security. in development. That's why we don't vote you just to breathe in and out. We vote you to live in a street that is well paved with proper drainage, with street lights. We vote for you to live within a hospital where we go and get a cure and not to die. We vote for you so that we get an education where our children get the best education. That's what we vote for you. So politics is life and death. This is what every Gambian citizen got to understand, and therefore, to make sure any politician who takes a position that threatens our life, that politician will kick you out of office immediately. You pay for it. That is part of life. So for me, Gambia should be kicked out of office right now. Gambia should protest until he steps down. All those House Assembly members, their constituents and the country should be protesting today until they step down, because they have threatened the lives of Gambians. That's the risk, the consequence that they should pay for. You see, look, we got to be serious in this country. Otherwise, we are going to jump another 50 years. And only you and me are going to tell our children, our grandchildren, that big lie that when we were young, things were right in the Gambia. They are not right. I was in a youth show on Friday. Just yesterday or Friday, all right, in Bakau. And I was telling them, I grew up in Bakau New Town. If you know Bakau New Town, there is a cinema at Bakau New Town, all right? There's a street that goes to Likunda, to the stadium. And I was telling them that street was, it was not paved, but it was a street that vehicles drive in and out. Today, that street is not motorable. I went around New Town 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when I was a small boy there. It is completely dilapidated. The streets are valleys. There are valleys, all eroded. I go around, so I took my daughter one day driving around Bundung High School, Bundung School, Nusrat School in Bundung. I told her, look, I was in these streets, I was roaming these streets 30 years ago. But the streets were better 30 years ago than today. That Newtown Road, I told those people, that Newtown Road, from Sabina Junction going all the way to where the Standard newspaper is, where you used to have Observer. I told them, it's the same road. It's the same road. No drainage, no street lighting. The road is still, with potholes. All the edges are scrapped off. I said, in 30 years ago, that road was better than it is today. So this country has deteriorated simply because of politics. Our lives have deteriorated. Yeah. But today, you'll have people like you and me tell our children in our days, Gambia, the golden days of the Gambia. When was Gambia ever had a golden days? When?
Yeah, I could even imagine why Jawara's time they say Gambia.
It was all lies. It is all lies. Because
we are still not satisfied with it.
Citizens who were civil servants in the 70s, and they tell me, I said, no. In the 70s, it was just poverty in the Gambia. We were getting food aid from USAID. What are you talking about? It was, there are no roads. If you in Gunjur, I want to go to Gunjur. It was terrible before that coastal road was built. So how can you tell me 70s Gambia was nice? Oh, nice where? So, but this is what you and I also are going to tell our children someday, when it is false. So this is it. But until we create risks, consequences, and that is what democracy is about. Consequences, risks. That's the heart of the accountability. That if I do this, good or bad, there will be consequences. There will be risks. In our politics, we don't put any risk. That's why we'll have politicians come and tell us cock and bull stories. We have public officers lying to us every day. We have public institutions failing to deliver nothing. And then we still celebrate them, Yeah,
they know that there is no consequence.
Because there's no consequence. How many corruption has been, pulled out in this government from 2017 to date? Involving Barrow himself, involving his finance minister, involving other ministers, involving heads of public institutions, enterprises. How many times have they violated the law? Even when the Constitution even said no, that your action is wrong, for example, and they still stay in their office, no consequence. Which person has this government put before a court for corruption or for police brutality? No consequence. they come and
that's why I say the corruption
and then kill us and you know I mean and no consequence. Yeah. So how can this country grow? How can this country develop? How?
But I think not only for politicians, but even when the people are corrupt, they are not afraid of, because they know that nothing will come out of it, and that is the danger. That's why we are not going forward.
Yeah.
But deteriorating.
If
in fact, we're going backward.
Right. If Barrow was,
everybody is doing what he wants.
Yeah. If Barrow was interested in corruption, one of the first laws to create in this country would have been the anti-corruption bill.
That's what we have been.
But I think the anti-corruption bill is in the parliament, right?
Yeah, now, but it's just wasting time there now, because before I thought that maybe it's by Barrow's table, and later it came out that the parliamentarians could be there. Just imagine. And they should have been the people who should have gone to Barrow and forced him to sign that so far, you know, because it's country's interest, because that will help.
And Alex, you know, it is not just for us to have a good constitution, good laws. They don't mean anything if you don't have conscientious citizens.
And the personal for it.
Yeah, patriotic citizens, honest citizens, who are prepared to abide by those laws, who are prepared to enforce those laws. So if you don't have those kind of citizens, you can have the best laws, it makes no difference. Because when you look at the 1997 Constitution, with all its challenges, weaknesses, if Yajame was prepared to abide by it, we would have had good governance. We would have you know, democracy.
Right.
Yes. As president, if he was ready to abide by the 1997 Constitution as it is, we would have had good governance and democracy. Yeah. I mean, all the laws we have in this country, the public officers are prepared to abide by those laws, we would have good governance. We would have a protection of human rights. We would have quality public, service delivery. Electricity would be fine. Water supply would be fine. Our streets would be done. From the local governments to the central government. So, you know, when I go around this country, I ask myself, seriously, do we have government in this country? You go to Brikama, ask yourself, do we have a local government in West Coast region? You go to Basse, you go to Banjul, or you go to Serakundama, you ask yourself, do we really have local government authorities in this country? Who is in charge? Basic services are not provided, or are provided at a very minimal level that you don't even notice it.
No one cares.
And no one cares. You drive around on the roadside, it's like a litter. Old vehicles, old chairs, old, sacks, old caps, old shoes, littered all over the place. Anybody can jump up and put up a shack anywhere, and that is it.
I think the fact that you said here that the councils or the KMCs are not working with the government, there is no ties or chain up. Maybe that's the problem, because as I just mentioned at the beginning also, when two elephants fight, only the grass will suffer. So I don't know how near these two are, or Barra and the mayors and so on. So if they are not working very harmonious together, maybe the government is not supporting them also directly, that they have to make sure that they have their own. It used to be like that before, that they used to have their own accounts and something like that. So sometimes the government can help them something, but normally it's based there that they can live from what they are earning, because I think it's a system there that they're collecting the tax also directly from this tax. When they work economically, then they can also do their projects and so, even without asking the government. So whether that is working, in terms of our corrupted place, I don't know. So, but that should be the case, because they are earning from the tax enough that they can even give the help Barrow now. But so when things are not working, that's why I used to say, everything you see, you should not wonder. They are products of corruption. That's why it's very important. Even the people outside to come and invest in the Gambia, they need to know where they're putting their money. That's why investors are like this. It's only the Lebanese and so, sorry when I say the money laundering people who are welcome, and that's what we are having as investors in the Gambia. Even being a Gambian, you want to go and invest, you have more problems than these people. So many Gambians run away again because you come to an officer, you need papers. The first thing he's going to ask is, what is my share? Am I right or not? So, yeah, and that one they'll only do it to a Gambian. They'll not do it to a foreigner. So that means they are blocking these chances of Gambians who want to come and do something. All we're talking, everything comes from one pot, I used to say. If we don't kill this disease, you have right, Madi, then the Gambia will not change and we'll never see the Gambian. Unless we kill this disease, and we've been protesting since 2016. Nothing happened.
Finally, some people are saying that the NAMs are not given the right to edit the errors that they have concern about. But somebody said that maybe they should have be given the rights, to correct those and then after do the vote. What is your take on that? With the constitution, you think they were not, given, they didn't have any option to do the correction before they vote, or they do have option, but they never wanted to take advantage of it?
Yeah,
No,
even if there's misunderstanding within that, or I said it the last time we got the discussion. Even if you look at the constitution, it doesn't favor also the diasporans in any case. The diasporans could have also said, no, that is a nonsense constitution because it doesn't help me. Then we are not supporting it. But you never hear anything because they know that it's for the greater good of the Gambia. Not our interest, but for the interest of the Gambian people. I used to say the unborn. We have to think too far. The unborn. We are here today. We only know that we are here today. We don't know where we are tomorrow. But all what we are doing is for the Gambians and the people coming. That's why I used to say people have to forget about my interest, my advantage. To be a patriotic, you have to say my Gambia. Take Gambia at hand. Not the money I'm going to gain, I'm going to steal or anything, or let us take this law because it's going to favor me, not Madi, things like that. And that's the problem we had in the parliament. In the parliament you have different kind of groups. So what would happen when everybody is trying to take his own favor, what favors him? At the end, it will just be a foolish paper. If you go out of the parliament, you go to Gambia on the streets, you'll have the same problem because people are not tasting the same. That's normal, it's natural. So unless we try and accept and say, even if it doesn't favor me, let us do it for the Gambia.
Together, yeah.
That is patriotism. You understand? That is patriotism. Even if it hurts me, I'm going to sacrifice for the country and for the people of the country. Then everybody should have signed that.
Okay.
But once they try to focus on their interest, everybody is having another interest, then you can forget it. And this thing, I said, is not yet gone. They can still, the Minister of Justice, they can still check this and see,
Maybe that will be done after the election, maybe.
Sit together. Yeah, for Barrow, it's a big advantage because he promised the people that. That's why I'm surprised that he's not active, and cry loud to say that people make sure that you sign here, so you can see what favors me and what doesn't favor me, So for him, it's a big disadvantage because I used to say it's one of his pillars he promised.
So you think this could be used against him in the election?
Who knows? Because Gambians are just sitting down quiet. People know what they do later at the end of the day. So as Madi said, the Gambians should be informed.
Yeah. So Madi, you can
hold our politicians accountable.
Madi, final
if
thoughts.
I vote you, let Madi go.
No, I'm saying final thoughts. Because he's going to another meeting, so we have to wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah, I myself, I have to. No, that's what I said. That's what Madi said. I mean, if you promise people you don't do it, people should hold you accountable. So we should be too far to come to that point.
Excellent. Excellent, Alice. Madi, final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, thanks to all of you and to this platform, huge opportunity. Certainly, we got to engage, and yeah, you know, for me, nation building started very late in the game. I'm not sure if even up to now we are really on that path. But what I would just say finally is that each and every Gambian must begin to reflect on himself and on herself, on the life you live. I mean, as Bob Marley said, are you satisfied with the life you live? You know, so that ultimately, you know, you kind of try to discover what is your mission to the Gambia, and are you fulfilling or betraying that mission as it is? You know, and I think in that reflection, we got to go very deep. You know, that is not just to reflect on yourself, because I can think about myself, educated, gainfully employed, and so, and stop there. But across your society and realize that if really you are a member of this republic, why should any Gambian be poor? Why should any Gambian die giving birth to a Gambian? Why should a Gambian child die before the age of 55? Why should a Gambian get poor education or in a classroom that is not fit for human habitation? You know, or to live in a community, you know, that is not fit for human habitation. So try to look at the bigger picture. That is this the kind of country you deserve as a human being, as a citizen? And when you do that self-critique, self-assessment, looking at the whole country, I'm sure a lot of us will realize that indeed, you know, this is not the society we want, we deserve. And so, you know, hopefully we'll know therefore what should be your mission to be on that path. So thank you very much. I guess the conversation should continue.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Definitely. We'll get you back here another time. So, Madi, thank you for your time. This is very informative. I'm pretty sure it's a lot of takeaway if you look at the comment section, and then you will know like how people have been really reacting. Alice, thank you so much.
You can talk from morning to evening because we have a lot of problems. Madi, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. Thank you, Madi. So take care, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Sawaneh. Take care.
Thank you to our viewers. We'll catch up next week, the same time.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye, guys. So another time, yeah.
Good night.
Yeah.
Take care.